After I saw a bunch of news, and maybe my algorithm was like suggesting more of it because I was clicking on these articles, I realized I wanted to make a video about the decline that Netflix is seeing right now and all of the news, compiling why Netflix is going through this, the era of streaming right now, the state of it, the state of television, and maybe what's coming next down the pipeline. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel. We do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. You may or may not have noticed that Netflix has had a lot of controversial news surrounding it the past few months. I cover a lot of Netflix content on my channel, and honestly, I owe Netflix a lot for providing the content that people like you want to see commentary of. Almost all of my highest viewed videos are commentary about Netflix content, mainly Netflix reality TV. So I just thought all of this news was pretty relevant to my channel and probably of interest to y'all, since a lot of y'all may be Netflix subscribers or maybe recent unsubscribers based on the data Netflix has released recently. So let's get into it. The water cup is back. As usual, I put timestamps down below if you want to skip around sections, and also I'm going to put in the description all of the articles that were the sources for all of the information I'm going to be presenting in this video. I am not a liberal arts major or a journalist or anything, so I might not be saying my references as I go, but all of them will be linked down below, and they are all very interesting reads if you're interested in the topic. So let's begin with the downfall of Netflix. Why has all of this news come about? And what is the big fuss at Netflix? If you hadn't heard, earlier this year was the first time Netflix announced that they had lost subscribers instead of gained. One article I saw said that Netflix lost 200,000 subscribers, and I saw there was one study done by some organization called Antenna that analyzes like TV statistics, and they said that Netflix has lost 13% of loyal fans, which they define loyal fans as people that had been subscribed to Netflix for over 3 years. I thought that was kind of a weird statistic, but it is significant that people that have been with Netflix long term are unsubscribing at this time. Netflix had its biggest drop in its stock prices because of this, and this news was the beginning of the end for Netflix because it signaled that there is an issue with the current business model of streaming, and Netflix was the pioneer in the streaming platforms, so whatever's happening to them first might be signaling to other streaming platforms of something that may be coming down the line. But maybe not, because other streaming platforms are kind of in different positions than Netflix, and I'm going to get into that later in the video. So why did Netflix lose subscribers? I read a few articles on the topic and a lot of common themes arose. Mostly it is competition. A lot of new streaming platforms have gained steam the past few years and are really giving Netflix a run for their money with the quality of content they're producing. Also, because more streaming platforms popped up, they decided to take back their IP, their intellectual property, from Netflix, so Netflix had to rely a lot more on original content. For example, when NBC and Comcast, whatever their official name is, when they launched Peacock, they took back The Office from Netflix, which The Office was a huge staple of Netflix's library. HBO Max came in and took away Friends from Netflix's library. Everyone wants their content back because it's theirs and it draws people in, and people already know and love shows like The Office and Friends and lots of other shows. I know my mom immediately got HBO Max to watch Friends because she likes to watch Friends every single night to this day. The difference with a lot of these networks and Netflix is that Netflix is purely a streaming platform. They are the blueprint for the streaming model, and all of these other streaming platforms like HBO Max, Peacock TV, Paramount Plus, they come from established media companies already. Disney Plus is another one All of those streaming platforms already had a history of content and franchises to help them hit the ground running with streaming. Paramount Plus, because it's Viacom, has VH1 content, MTV content, Nickelodeon content, and history of it. Previously, I couldn't watch Zoe 101 anywhere, and then Paramount Plus came around, and all of that is there. Disney Plus came with all of the Disney Channel originals that are super nostalgic. It comes with Marvel, it comes with Star Wars. I mean, Disney is a behemoth compared to a lot of these. But that is very different from Netflix. Netflix does not have this long history of content that is nostalgic. Netflix is relatively new compared to these companies. And also in the streaming game, you have the huge tech companies. Apple TV Plus and Amazon Prime are in a similar boat as Netflix, that they don't have a history of content, but they have the money and budget to put behind any kind of show they want to make. So Netflix truly is the only platform that isn't relying on a history of content, and most of its money comes from its subscribers. It is a company just devoted to streaming media and not whatever Apple and Amazon are doing primarily, and the streaming platforms are just kind of a side hustle for them. So I think the competition is really, really tough. I did come across this pie chart that showed in 2016 that Netflix had 71% of subscribers compared to Hulu and Amazon Prime, which were the only other main platforms at the time. And now in 2021, Netflix is at 46% and is competing with Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, Hulu, HBO Max, and Paramount Plus. It's crazy that 5 different platforms joined the pie chart within those 5 years. So another issue that Netflix has, because it has to rely on this original content instead of the established franchises or IP of other networks now, Netflix has an interesting approach, I mean, to say the least, about producing media, because they seem to just kind of throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, and that leads to a lot of cancellations of shows after 1 or 2 seasons, which upsets a lot of cult fan followings of said shows. I think that in general over the years makes Netflix kind of the bad guy to a lot of people. They just can't seem to upkeep the cost of doing so many originals. Platforms like HBO and Apple TV, these more premium branded services, they focus in on less original content and really focus on quality. And that is just their business model being different from Netflix. But Netflix's approach, I think, has led to a lot of kind of bridges burned with fans and just upset feelings and sunken costs, because they get 1 season out of a show and then cancel it. It's like, well, was that worth it for anything? And the reason the budgets are so high for these shows, there's a few reasons actually. One, of course, is staffing all of this. It takes a lot of skilled labor and a lot of hard hours. Last fall, there was almost a strike due to the harsh working conditions at these streaming platform sets. It's hard to staff so much production, and then if you add COVID protocols on top of it, that is added budget to these shows to maintain safe conditions. Also, in general, TV quality has increased so much. Throughout the past few years, it felt like TV became the new movies, the new cinema. TV show quality went up exponentially. Like, so many TV shows now, especially all the huge TV shows, they feel cinematic in how they're shown. You don't have as many laugh track sitcoms anymore. Almost every show feels like a movie nowadays, and if you've increased the quality, then that means you need more people to staff it, or more talented people, higher salaries. There's also this unique issue going on, and this is across the board with streaming platforms, but apparently it's very difficult to find new showrunners of shows. And there's an article I linked below claiming that there's a big show running crisis in Hollywood, and it's a really great article. I recommend it, but it is very long. This video is more overview, but the gist of the article is that it's become really difficult to train showrunners in Hollywood, and showrunner is apparently, I learned from the article, I didn't know, it's actually not like an official term, as in it's not an official job title that anyone has like on paper, and it's more of just an industry term for basically, it's like the lead writer producer on a show. A lot of times the face of the creation of the show counts as the showrunner. Also, it varies a lot production to production. So the definition of showrunner is basically not super clear, but it's kind of like the person that coordinates everything on set, the person on the chopping block if it doesn't go well. They touch basically the entire production. I think of like Mindy Kaling on Sex Lives of College Girls, or Mike Schur on Parks and Rec, maybe Sam Levinson on Euphoria, the Duffer Brothers on Stranger Things, like the single person that you blame for bad story arcs happening. And basically what's happening with TV writers and showrunners right now is that there is so many different productions going on. First of all, it's hard to even find someone with enough experience to be a showrunner on a show. The training of show running is kind of disrupted right now due to several factors. The article goes in depth about them. One of them is COVID. A big issue impacting this too is that now with TV shows becoming a lot more like movies, the writing of a show happens on its own and then the production happens way later, which is more how movies are made. If you notice now, TV shows are a lot less episodes, there's a lot more time between seasons, and they're more cinematically produced. So writers don't get to be on set anymore for TV shows to see how their script was executed and learn from that. They don't get to be in the editing room to see how their script translated to the edit, which apparently are very important parts of being trained to be a showrunner, because a showrunner has to know what every single department on a set is doing in order to do a good job. There's a lot of factors impacting this showrunner crisis, and I recommend the article if you want to learn more, but I think that's just an example of one part of the industry that is suffering, and there are probably a lot of different leadership issues across the streaming platforms just because there is just so much content. It's truly an oversaturation of content, and I've been seeing a lot of reports that every streaming platform wants their version of every platform's biggest hit. This is a video about Netflix. So recently there was this leaked memo or something from Netflix that said Netflix wants a new girl, a female Jack Ryan, a version of The Voice that appeals to the TikTok generation. They don't want any sadcoms, which I think HBO has those on lock. So this memo detailed all of the types of content that Netflix is looking for, and it feels very like copycat-ish. And I imagine at the other streaming platforms there are similar memos going around. They haven't leaked, because right now Netflix is the one under fire, but they all try to emulate each other. I mean, Hulu and Netflix released a Fire Festival documentary in the same month, and that was like back in 2019. So it's not that new, but there is just this oversaturation of content, and every streaming platform wants to be the only streaming platform, but it's just not sustainable. You can't staff this much media. You can't raise prices constantly on subscribers. Like, it was gonna decline at some point, and the point is now. Also, one article mentioned that every streaming platform is chasing these huge franchises that they can depend on. Like I said, the platforms that already have a history of content have an easier time. I mean, just Disney is clearly the leader in buying every big franchise and exploiting it to death, but Netflix has kind of few of those. I think because they put their eggs in too many baskets that they end up canceling so much. It's hard to really nail down a big franchise, and I think every streaming platform is searching for a huge franchise they can latch onto. I think the closest thing Netflix has is Stranger Things, which this year and this week is about to have a big resurgence, I imagine, but still, it's in its fourth season. It doesn't have the hold it used to. It doesn't have the cultural impact it used to, and it is going to end in next season. But they've already announced that they're doing a spin-off type series with it, or prequel, who knows. They're probably going to try everything with the Stranger Things franchise because it's kind of the only reliable franchise Netflix has. I'm trying to think. I mean, they have Bridgerton and they have a lot of successful shows, but I'm thinking of like franchise type shows where like you sell a lot of merchandise. Comment below if you remember what Netflix big franchises are, aside from Stranger Things. So what is Netflix doing about all of these issues? Obviously, they've been subject of a lot of critique and they have to respond somehow. This year, they have raised prices already for their subscribers, but it feels like there's a lot of different things coming with them that they've announced throughout this year. They are planning on providing a cheaper ad-supported new tier to their service. Netflix has never had ads before, and they are learning from their streaming platform counterparts that that is a viable option. Paramount Plus and Peacock both offer ad versions. I think some of the others probably do too. They're also trying to crack down on password sharing across different households, and I saw that they had even been piloting it in certain regions. That one I'm really not looking forward to, and I think is a bad move. And I worry that because Netflix is the pioneer of streaming, that decision will trickle down to all of the streaming services too, which is just really rough and not fair because we already pay so much. We are already at the point where getting a subscription to all of these services is like having cable again. The only thing that keeps it semi-sustainable is being able to share with family. So I really hope this doesn't become the trend, though my sneaking suspicion is that it will. There's also been reports that Netflix is going to add gaming to the service, which gaming is a whole other industry. It feels like a gimmick. It kind of feels like how Instagram just adds any feature from other social media apps and makes a shittier version of it. Maybe Netflix will have success, but I know they are trying to break into gaming. Also, Netflix has announced that they're in the early stages of trying out a live streaming portion of their service. When I heard that at first, I was like, oh, they're trying to be Twitch? When I hear live streaming, I kind of think of that live streaming, like on YouTube or Twitch. But what they mean by this is more like TV. Basically just broadcasting their content live. Apparently Apple TV Plus has already tried this on their service and it went well. They streamed a sports event. I think sports are the easiest way to break into live streaming because they are just naturally live by nature. It's like a game happening in real time. I feel like sports are the reason cable is still even around and live TV is still like going strong. I mean, I know live TV is pretty much dead, but I think sports are holding it down. And I feel like most of the people I know that pay for a live TV service only do it for sports. And finally, a big response that Netflix has had to this controversy is layoffs. Over the past couple of weeks, they laid off around 150 employees, and that might not even be counting a bunch of like contractor freelancers that they had also hired in like a full-time or part-time capacity. I couldn't quite find like a clear source of like what the total number was. I know it's at least 150 employees. And I kind of wanted to talk about this issue separately because it ties into a lot of like diversity initiatives that Netflix and Hollywood in general have been trying to make the past few years and exposing some of the hypocrisy around it. So I think diversity has been a big benefit to the streaming era. The benefit of having so much content is that there truly is something out there for everybody to enjoy. The issue though is that so many times it feels like the people hired for diversity initiatives are the first to be cut when there are layoffs, or they're the first to have their shows canceled after one season, despite having a loyal following. This kind of came up in the showrunner article, but it feels like the companies that are hiring and firing people use lack of experience as the excuse for laying off these people first, which is really inequitable because the people that come from privilege are the ones that are able to take pay cuts, are able to work for free as interns to get their foot in the door, and that leads them down the path of ultimately becoming leaders in the industry. So it's hard because Netflix could say, we're going to hire all these people of different backgrounds. And then when it comes to firing people, they're like, well, this group of people just have the least experience, so they're gone. And it becomes this thing where all of these people have to like represent their entire like ethnicity or sexuality or whatever they're representing. And it sucks that everyone has to have this extra burden on them. A commitment to diversity has to include accommodating for the inequities for the people coming in. The effort has to be put into training these people extra if they don't have the necessary experience. Like, that is part of committing to diversity as a company. It's not so easy as hiring just people of that background, and then if they fail, firing them. It's investing that time into evening the playing field a little bit. So I think that's a big struggle for Netflix and a lot of companies just in general. They fail to see that this is part of the process and are just worried about optics. However, Netflix has said fuck the optics lately, and these layoffs caused a lot of buzz and controversy on social media. So this leads me into Netflix's public image and a little bit of its role in the culture wars of today. So the ethical issues around Netflix kind of started, not started, but I feel like increased exponentially after the Dave Chappelle comedy special incident. He said some transphobic jokes in his stand-up, and that led to a lot of discussion online about whether Netflix should platform Dave Chappelle or not. I found one article with another leaked memo. Netflix needs to guard their memos harder. Just kidding. We need to know. Netflix put out a memo after the Dave Chappelle thing saying, depending on your role, you may need to work on titles you perceive to be harmful. If you find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you. Their response to employees was to say, you might have to work on a transphobic individual's comedy special, and if you don't want to do it, then there's the door. And apparently a Fox News host and Elon Musk expressed support after this memo was leaked. That should tell you everything you need to know about whose values this message aligns with. So apparently it was only days later when Netflix announced that it was laying off 150 employees. It's a lot of the content social media writers that got laid off. Apparently a lot of the staff of To Doom, which apparently was this fan hub that Netflix was trying out, and apparently most of the staff was women of color. Also, Netflix cut a lot of the contractors and writers working on its diversity communications social media channels. So you might be familiar with this if you fall under any of these categories, but it's specific social media accounts that target specific demographics and promote Netflix's content that is tailored to those demographics. So there's Strong Black Lead, which focuses on Black media on Netflix. There's Golden, which promotes Asian American content. There's Con Todo, which promotes Latinx content. And there's Most, which promotes LGBTQ plus centered content. I saw a lot of this fallout across my social media page, mainly on Twitter, all of these writers looking for jobs. It was honestly really sad to witness happening in real time. People were like, I literally just got fired from Netflix. My whole team got fired from Netflix. It was really, really bad. Netflix's response included saying that their diversity numbers and percentages are the same pre and post layoffs. So although it looks like they were targeting all of these underrepresented groups, it's not actually the case, and almost all of their social media teams were affected. They also cut about 70 employees from their animation department, which is classic. Animation is often not taken as seriously as other content, and it's really sad as a big fan of animation myself. But regardless if their diversity numbers are the same before and after the layoffs, the optics look awful. It looks like they targeted all of their channels that were specifically tailored for marginalized communities. And I just feel like in this day and age, you gotta be really careful. And it just feels like this is always the story that underrepresented groups are seen as these liabilities or these risky choices when they're actually really important with maintaining connection with those groups on social media, and it just looks horrible for Netflix. The general attitudes I've seen towards them lately has not been positive, and that just made it way worse. So what does the future hold for Netflix and streaming platforms in general? One article I saw said that they expect a lot more mergers, which is what happened with the movie industry especially. Right now, HBO Max and Discovery Plus I think are trying to merge, which I hope they kind of do because I don't want to get Discovery Plus separately. Also, Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN have been kind of a bundle So it exists, and that is a probability in the future. Also, in general, I'm seeing just more ads and just a return to cable or TV, like regular format. Basically streaming going all the way back to the beginning. Also expected is a similar trajectory as the movie industry, which is focusing on franchises and these big budget hits. Right now, the movie industry is mostly made up of huge franchise movies. They pull in the big box office numbers with a few exceptions here and there. So I think TV is going to follow in those footsteps, or it's going to try to. But also on the other hand, I expect a lot more reality TV and unscripted content for these platforms because those are a lot lower cost. Netflix already has an oversaturation of reality TV, and I'm honestly grateful for it because it is part of my success on my channel. But at the same time, the quality of that reality TV is abysmal. It is so trashy, and it's not really the type of content that sticks with you for the long run, especially if it's not authentic or quality. So I think for the most part, most people are gonna be upset that TV is gonna continue to lean and provide a lot of that content. One of my favorite historical facts about reality TV is that it really exploded when there was a huge writer's strike in TV in Hollywood. So reality TV is kind of unregulated. It might be becoming more now, but in general, it's less regulated and requires less crew and less money. Usually you don't even pay the people shown because it's this business model that is basically paying people in exposure. You don't have to rely on the unions as much with reality TV, and that is the sad truth. So I think more reality TV is coming, more unscripted content is coming. Finally, this is just like my wishful suggestion for Netflix. I don't know why Netflix hasn't innovated in the space of sharing data with us, the users. I feel like Netflix should be looking to Spotify and how they get people so excited about their statistics at the end of the year with their Spotify Wrapped series thing. I wish Netflix could find ways to incorporate our data, because Netflix is notoriously really private and secret about data because they're trying to have a leg up on the competition that way. But at this point, Netflix does not have much to lose, and I think it's worth trying, even just giving us like, these are your top watch shows this year or of all time. I don't think Netflix should get into like, you spent 50 hours watching this show over and over, or because that might freak people out, to be honest. But I think they could do like cute little roundups of what are your favorite things. For me, sometimes I forget what I watched and what I loved, and I wish there was just like more data provided to us in like a fun way that we could share with our friends. And I feel like that would be a good way to get people engaged with Netflix again, or get people to have like any positive feelings to Netflix again. Maybe there's some big reason why they haven't ventured into that, but I've always thought like that would be a cool way for them to innovate and also get back into favor with people more. It creates FOMO with people if they don't have Netflix, which their big thing right now is they want more subscribers. I feel like it's right there, and there must be some like bigger reason why they're not doing it, but that's just my little suggestion as just a regular ass person. So that's all I have for this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on Netflix. Are you subscribed? Have you unsubscribed recently? How do you feel about the company in general? Is there anything they would do to make you unsubscribe? I would love to hear it in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.